Have you ever wondered where our modern depiction of aliens came from? Everyone knows the stereotypical look. Little green or gray men with large eyes and skinny limbs. But how did we, as a society, land on this uniform look for a creature that, in theory, should be able to look like absolutely anything? While there are theories ranging from 12th century English legends to popular novels of the 1940s and 50s, one major contributing factor of the actual origin may have begun on a humble farmstead near Hopkinsville, Kentucky. On the night of August 21st, 1955, a large extended farm family called the Suttons arrived at their local southwestern Kentucky police station in a state of absolute terror and disbelief. Over the coming hours, they would relay a tale of a horrifying, otherworldly encounter that would rival even Hollywood on its best day. With stifled breathing and erratic descriptions, the family did their best to recreate their overwhelmingly unique experience to investigators. Although there have been thousands of reported incidents involving what people believe to be alien encounters since then, the Suttons' report sticks out amongst them for multiple reasons. For one, the sheer number of witnesses was nearly a dozen, making it a bit more difficult to fabricate a congruent story if they were just pulling it out of thin air. Two, the length of their encounter with these creatures was supposedly for several hours long, whereas many incidents simply report catching a glimpse of something alien. And finally, the Suttons reported that they were in extremely close proximity to these supposedly alien creatures, sometimes only a few feet apart. Due to the fantastical nature of the report, the Sutton story quickly became regional news, eventually even receiving national coverage in some areas. So what actually happened? Well, it all started when a family friend of the Suttons, Billy Ray Taylor, was visiting them and fetching water from a backyard well at approximately 7 p.m. Billy had supposedly seen a silvery object in the distance. He described it as real bright with an exhaust that had all colors of the rainbow. He recounted that it came silently towards the house, passed over it, stopped in the air for a moment, and then dropped straight to the ground. When Billy Taylor told the Suttons about his experience, they laughed it off, not taking him seriously. They suggested that he was seeing things, and that's about as far as the conversation went. That is, until their dog started barking incessantly about an hour later. Two of the Sutton boys went to the back door to find out why the dog was going crazy, and they noticed a strange glow coming from outside. When they checked to see what it was, they spotted a small humanoid creature. By their description, it was about 3.5 feet tall. It had an oversized head, almost perfectly round. Its arms extended almost to the ground, and it had talons on its hands. The creature had oversized eyes that glowed with a yellowish light. The body of this unknown organism gave off an eerie shimmer in the light of the night's new moon, as if it was made of a silver metal. Upon their discovery, the two grabbed a 20-gauge shotgun and a .22 rifle, preparing themselves to defend the homestead. They fired at the little humanoid and later recounted that its hands were raised above its head during the commotion. After shots were fired, the creature did a full-on flip, scrambled upright, and fled into the darkness. Shortly after, they realized that their terrifying experience was only beginning. The men saw a similar creature appear in a side window, prompting them to fire shots through the window screen. Much like its backyard counterpart, this one was also seemingly impervious to bullets, once again executing a flip before disappearing into the cover of night. Mrs. Langford, one of the witnesses in the Sutton family home that night, later had reported, "It went out in the hallway and crouched down next to Billy. When I saw one approaching the door, it looked like a 5-gallon gasoline can with a head on top and small legs. It was a shimmering bright metal like on my refrigerator." Things only got more intense as the night went on. Billy Taylor stepped outside to evaluate where these invaders had gone, or if any were still approaching. Those looking on from inside were horrified to see a claw-like hand reach down and touch his hair from the small overhanging roof from above. The group screamed and pulled Taylor back while one of the Sutton boys shot above the overhang. And then once more, another creature hanging in a nearby tree. It was said that it seemingly floated to the ground before scurrying into the woods. From that point onward, the Suttons moved inside and spent the next few hours listening intently for any movements or noise, weapons at the ready in case anything tried to break inside. They would hear the occasional scratching on the roof, but not much else seemed amiss. Finally, at 11 p.m., the whole group hightailed it for the vehicles and sped off to the Hopkinsville police station. After listening to the report and seeing the undeniable terror-stricken look on their faces, the police chief called for backup and he was joined by the state police, the military police, and a photographer from the Kentucky New Era paper at the Sutton farmstead. They combed the area in search of any evidence, but outside of the shell casings from the Suttons' gunshots, nothing was found. They also searched for any proof of intoxication but didn't find any alcohol. According to the Suttons, liquor was not allowed in the farmhouse, and everyone was sober during the night's events. Once the police and others had left, it was reported that the next morning that the creatures had returned between 2:30 a.m. and daybreak. Mrs. Langford said she saw one glowing several times by her bedside window, and it had placed its claw-like hand on the screen. In the days following the incident, the story picked up a lot of traction. Radio stations and newspapers all over were recounting the strange tale, with it even being picked up by the New York Times. As a result, hundreds of curious citizens descended on the farm, including many skeptics that would ridicule the Suttons as ignorant or fraudulent. As these stories spread further and further, it began to take on a life of its own, and details were muddled, some aspects exaggerated. It's believed that the Sutton report became conflated with an entirely separate report from an eastern Kentucky woman who claimed to see a flying saucer and a green humanoid figure that had emerged from it. When the two stories combined, the depictions of aliens being little green men was reinforced. The day after the incident, investigators once again returned to the farmhouse and scoured the grounds for any evidence that may have been related to a saucer landing, footprints, blood trails, or scratch marks on the roof. Their search once again came up empty. However, when the adult eyewitnesses were interviewed and their depictions were made into sketches, it was impressive how closely their details had aligned. Considering some of those who gave descriptions were away from the farmhouse all day and unable to coordinate with the others, they were remarkably specific and had great consistency. The Suttons' report and the depictions they gave would later become known more specifically as the Kentucky Goblins incident. Though skeptics say it would have been relatively easy for the family to collectively fabricate the story, those who knew the family point to the no-nonsense attitude that these Suttons had possessed as a whole. They abhorred the limelight and took no pleasure in the media frenzy that ensued after the report hit the public. It would seem that they had no reason to lie. Outside of helping reinforce the modern-day depiction of the little green or gray men we know as aliens, the Kentucky Goblins incident supposedly directly influenced the movie E.T. and the Pokemon known as Sabali. So what do you think? First of all, do you believe that aliens exist and have they visited Earth? Were the Suttons telling the truth, or was this just a family with a wild imagination? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I can't wait to read them. Thank you so much once again for watching, and make sure to tune in for next week's mystery.